Hello students, we're about to go into the explorers of this time period, and we are going to go through different explorations that came through Western Virginia to look at new land that the big shots in the New World wanted to find and wanted to see what they could do with. So I have given you two articles, one book and an article. The article is by westvirginiaculture.org. Now, this article goes through the early exploration and settlement of Western Virginia, which we will talk about. And it does go through a lot of the major events that did happen. Now, I gave you a book in the link below. It's called A History of the Appalachia by Richard B. Drake. And this really shows how, in the early days of Western Virginia, there was a bunch of Native Americans. This shows how a bunch of these Native Americans were living there peacefully before the time where the Europeans came in, wanted to take their land, wanted to take it for themselves. Now, I will also be giving you little excerpts from this book because I don't want you to read the whole book, but I'm going to give you a little bit from it so you guys can go through it and answer a couple of questions I will give you in class about how this book describes the Cherokee, describes different tribes in Western Virginia at the time, like the Shawnee and the Delaware, that what they really did when the explorers came into their parts. Now, most of the Indians from Richard B. Drake, most of the Indians of eastern North America spoke languages including in the Algonquin family of languages. On this sea of Algonquin tribes, the Iroquoian-speaking nations of Appalachia sat in troubled domination. The Iroquois Confederation of the Five Nations to the north and the Appalachian New York and Cherokee to the south, centered in East Tennessee, northern Georgia, and western North Carolina politically. However, the most significant and most persistent threat were the Cherokee in the southern mountain homeland, which was the Muskegon-speaking tribes that dominated southern coastal plain, particularly in the Creeks. Now, these Cherokee were very tough, and they were feared by a bunch of the tribes because they were ruthless. Now, the Europeans, when they came over and they saw these Cherokee and they interacted with them, they kind of took this into mind, and they judged all the Native Americans from now on with this. So we will have, in the future, even explorers will interact with these Indians, and sometimes they think they have a bias about them, a confirmation bias, because they already know what they experienced with the other people, the Cherokee, and everything like that. They don't look at somebody new and think, well, maybe they're somebody that we can trust. No, they know what they think in their mind about these Indians. Now, this early settlement of after the exploration, like the Thomas and Batts exploration that would go up into through southern West Virginia, and Abram Wood expedition that would go into eastern Western Virginia and then go right into the middle of it, and the Needham and Arthur expedition, which would break up the Occaneechi, which had a monopoly, because they wanted to go to a new tribe to break up this monopoly. And we will learn more about this. I'm just giving you guys an overview of what will happen while we are talking of this, because this is an introductory video to show you what we will learn. Now, going into the early settlement, in 1669, King Charles II granted land patents, including the eastern part of the present day of Western Virginia, to support of his family. By 1917, Thomas Lord Ferrix had consolidated claim to an entire 5,282,000 acres in his own name. And this information is brought to you from the West Virginia Cultures and History article that is below this video. Now, if you think about it, back then, the king, if he liked somebody, like if you're the king and one of your friends today wanted some land that you owned, If you didn't need it, you give it to them. But even when they gave this land, it was so much land that these lords and these people that were running things in the New World didn't know what to do, so they started settling with Europeans that would come over from England and come over from different countries along their boats, along these lords' boats, so they could settle this land and start to make it into a profit. So after these settlements were far and wide in western Virginia, but because of the terrain of the Appalachian Mountains, it is hard to get into the spots that these settlements are. So a lot of these settlements were by themselves. They didn't, if they wanted to go like all the way in to the East Coast, it would take them months and months and months. So they had to survive on their own. And they were called mountaineers. They knew, the mountaineer men, they knew that they needed to survive on their own. They would hunt, they would chop wood down, they would get their own food, they would gather. So a lot of these men or frontiersmen were known to be tough guys. So in 1754, all of the settlement between the British and the French would lead to the French and Indian War. And that will be where your next video will start. So students, please look over this video multiple times. I will show this to you in class, which you probably are watching right now. But you will look over this video, look through the sources, and then I will also give you a list of vocabulary words that will be in with the early explorers and settlements of West Virginia. So thank you, and hope we have a good section this year.